Welcome back to Part 3. Now that we have some familiarity with the cloud dashboard and player authentication, let's keep using this simple scene and move on to implementing authentication with other platforms, starting with Facebook. You'll first need to register as a meta developer. How to do that is clearly laid out at the URL at developers.facebook.com. And once you're registered, you can start following along at developers.facebook.com/apps, or you could just click on Apps. Click Create App at the top right. I'll put in the name of our demo project. Then we want the use case of authenticate and request data from users with Facebook login. Click Next, and then I don't want to connect a business portfolio right now. Then let's go to Dashboard. Okay, and then I have to sign into Facebook. Go to Dashboard again. Okay, at long last, here we are in the dashboard of our project. What our Unity project will need is the app secret, which is in App Settings, Basic. And actually, we'll need the app secret and the app ID here. So click on this little button that says Show, and then you may need to put in your Facebook password again. All right, and then you can copy this app secret. Let's go back into Unity and this time do things in the editor first and then check it in the dashboard. In Project Settings, go to Authentication. And in Identity Providers, click the drop-down and select Facebook and then Add. And there it's asking for the app ID and the app secret, which you have copied, so you could paste that here. And then go over to the Facebook or Meta dashboard again and get the app ID. Back in the editor, paste the app ID and click Save. And now we need to get the Facebook SDK. Though there's a big green download button, let's read this note here. There are details for iOS you'll want to take a look at. And then it also says that the latest version and changelog are at the link. So let's click on here and get the latest package from there. We've been working on the series for a while, and in that time, 17 updated to 18. So even though you'll see 17 in some of the screen caps, we've updated the video for version 18. Do check the discussion post at the link below for any further changes. So download version 18. Then I'll right-click to extract the folder. Inside, we can see there's a Unity package, so let's go ahead and import that. To do that, go to Assets, Import Package, and Custom Package. Find the package, click Open. All right, so you can import mostly everything. I would suggest that you toggle off of packages because they introduce a couple errors. And these are Unity packages anyway. We can just get these from the package manager. So no need to get them from the Facebook SDK. All right, click Import. You may not get this message if you're doing Facebook first, but if you did Google Play Games before this video, you may get a message about obsolete files because the Facebook SDK potentially brings in an older version of Google's external dependency manager, which may be a version older than whatever Google Play brings in. You can always just delete the older version yourself if you run into any issues. Next, we have some IAP wrapper error. We're not using Facebook's in-app purchasing. We'll implement in-app purchasing later in the series, so we can delete this script and whatever depends on it. All right, it looks like a main menu script also uses IAP, so we can delete that too. And it looks like there is an iOS resolver that can't be loaded. Like I said before, I'm editing this in after I've gone through Google Play Games, so I have two versions of the external dependency manager here. iOS resolver looks like it's in the older one, so I'll just delete the older version, which clears the error, but I'm going to restart Unity for good measure just to ensure nothing is broken. All right, at this point, you should have a Facebook drop-down menu at the top of your screen. So click the drop-down, Edit, Settings, and then I get an error here that says Non-Secure Network Connections Disabled in Player Settings. To fix that, go to Project Settings, Player, and look for Allow Downloads over HTTP. It's right next to the Active Input Handling in Configuration. Change that to, let's do Always Allowed for now. Go back to the Facebook dropdown and click Edit Settings. You could also click on the Facebook Settings asset. Then switch to the inspector, and then put in your app name And you can get the Facebook app ID from the project settings window. That'll be in authentication and inside Facebook. So we'll copy that and paste it over. And I'm seeing that this automatically makes an Android manifest.xml in the console. Now we need a client token, and if we hover over client token, it tells us where to find it. Client token can be found in our app settings advanced. So let's go there. And by the way, after I got the app secret, I saved this window in the meta dashboard. Not sure if it's necessary, but that's what I did. All right, let's go in app settings advanced. And scrolling down, there it is. Let's copy it and paste it in the editor. With everything filled out, that's all we need to do for this part. Clear the console, and it's time to get the Facebook login working. We'll do what we did before, adding the documentation example code to the login manager script we started in the last video. If you're starting with this video, we strongly recommend you go back to part 1 of the series, and this is a good point to do so, and then you can come back to this spot. Example code is both on Facebook and Unity, and we'll have the URLs below for both. In this case, it'll be easier to just follow along, so open up your login manager script, and at the top, start by adding the using facebook.unity namespace. Before we do anything Facebook, we need to initialize the Facebook SDK. So let's make a dedicated method for that, and let's just call it in awake, initialize Facebook, and we'll write this method next. If Facebook is not initialized, fb.init is called with 2 callback functions, init callback when initialization completes, and onHideUnity called when Facebook needs to show UI elements that might hide the game. We'll write these methods below in a moment. If Facebook is already initialized, fb.activateApp is called to log an app activation event. Next, let's write out init callback and onHideUnity. Init callback calls activateApp, which guarantees that it's called whether we've already initialized or are just initializing now. This event is part of Facebook Analytics. The activation event can tell us how frequently users activate the app. You can check the reference section of the Facebook documentation for more info about this. And onHideUnity just pauses the game by setting the timescale. At long last, we can write the start Facebook sign-in method. In the last video, we decided to have the same method handle login and linking. We'll do the same thing here. We start with creating a list of permissions we're asking from Facebook. We get the basic profile info and the player's email address. Login with read permissions opens the Facebook login, and the player will see a screen asking them to authorize the game. The permissions we're requesting will be listed for the player to approve. The code after this is a callback running after the player finishes the Facebook login. Start Facebook sign-in isn't declared as async void because the asynchronous operation happens inside the callback function that's being passed to login with read permissions. We check whether the login was successful, so if the player cancels this, it'll be false. And then we get an access token, the ticket that proves the player logged in, and this is what we need to use with Unity authentication. We're passing result as a parameter to our callback function, but we aren't using it directly. We can access global static properties from the Facebook SDK. The result parameter contains the same information, though. If the player is not signed in with Unity authentication, they're a new player, so they're signing into authentication using their Facebook identity. If they've already signed in, they might have signed in anonymously as a guest, or they could have used another identity platform to gain authentication. Either way, we want to link their Facebook identity to their player account. Sign in with Facebook Async takes the Facebook access token and sends it to Unity authentication. It uses a wait because this takes time to happen over the internet, and if successful, the player is now signed in. If there's an error, we log it. Link works the same way. We're taking in the access token, but we're using authentication service.instance.link with Facebook Async. And then we have a special catch here if an account is already linked. So we might want to check for that before this. Before we try this, as long as we're logging everything, we should log a successful link here. I didn't do that, but we're going to check it in the Unity Cloud dashboard anyways. Let's go back to the editor and trigger Start Facebook Sign-In with a button click. So we'll just need to drag the login manager into onClick, and then go into the login manager and find Start Facebook Sign-In. There we go. Let's try this. Checking out our logs, we're already signed in because we've signed in before in the last video. We'll be linking Facebook then. There are some Facebook SDK initialization logs, and we have a warning about using Facebook in the editor. It's not the same as using it on iOS and Android. Let's click the Facebook button, and that brings up this mock sign-in UI, which starts with a warning. It says the same thing as the log. Click Find Access Token, and then you'll get taken to a mock sign-in page of sorts, which gives us a user token to paste in the box we were just looking at. However, this time, instead of a user token, we get a message that we need to grant permissions to our app to get an access token. We'll do that in a moment. For now, just click Grant Permissions here, Access Token created, copy this access token, and then paste it back in the mock UI. And then click Send Success. Unlike me, you should have a satisfying Facebook link success log. Looks like I just have that a player is already signed in. Let's just check the Unity Cloud dashboard to be sure. I'm in Player Management. I'll click on the player. And there we see we have Unity player accounts and Facebook as linked identities for this player. Great. Let's check out player authentication. And we see that we have Facebook set up as an identity provider, which we did in the editor this time. Now let's go back to the Facebook dashboard, to our project in the dashboard category. And you should see this add and customize use cases. It's like a checklist. Click on that, customize adding a Facebook login button. And there we have the permissions. We have public profile, but we want to add the email permission as well. Just click Add to do that. And then there's not really a save here or anything. Let's go back to the home icon on the left. And there we see we've moved on from 1 to 2, where there's a few other items to check out. Next, we need to go into App Settings and Basic, and then scroll to the bottom where we need to add our platforms. Click here. And then we need to select our platforms. So we'll do Android and iOS. I'll continue with Android from here, and then iOS will be the next chapter. Then I'll also add Google Play. Okay, so then we need our key hash, package name, and class name. These will be in the Facebook settings in Unity. First, we see that the package name is the template we're using and not our project, so let's change that in a moment. I also have a debug Android key hash here. If you don't have that, it should generate when you build any Android project, so you can use this project, or you could build from a blank project. If you don't have a debug Android key hash and you have a message here that says OpenSSL not found, make sure that OpenSSL is installed and that it is in your path. Let's fix this. If you don't have the issue, you can skip ahead. We have a few steps to do here. I'll go through them quickly and hopefully it's not too painful. Facebook needs to access the Java Development Kit, JDK, and OpenSSL, a cryptography toolkit. The JDK gets the certificate from our Android key store, and OpenSSL converts it to Facebook's required hash format. We'll need to create system environment variables to the paths of these programs so that Facebook can find and use them. So go to your start or search and type system variables and open up the system environment variables. You'll need to download OpenSSL and the Java Development Kit. We'll include links below. In the window that comes up, click on Environment Variables, and then click on Path and Edit. And then add the two paths like I have here. At that point, restart Unity and see if the message is gone and the debug hash is there. If it's not fixed, try restarting your computer. And if you have any other problems, write to us on the discussion post and we'll try and help. To change the package name, go to Project Settings, Player, and switch to Android. Down in Other Settings, you can rename the package name for the project. So com.yourcompany.theproject. And this will change in the Facebook settings when we switch platform to Android. So let's do that next. In your Build Profiles window, you can switch the platform to Android and click on Switch Platform. And then when that's done, head back to the Facebook dashboard and you can paste over the key hash, class name, and the package name for your project, which should all be lowercase, just like in your settings. Now back in Unity, let's do full debugging in the debug symbols setting, and then enable development build, which includes scripting debug symbols, and it includes the profiler in the build. After you do that, go to Project Settings, Player, and go to Publishing Settings, and enable Main Gradle Template, Custom Gradle Properties Template, and Custom Gradle Settings Template. If you're new to building to Android, Gradle is an open source build automation tool which Unity uses for Android builds. You can see these generated configuration files in your project window in Plugins, Android, and there's those generated files. Next, go up to Assets, External Dependency Manager, Android Resolver, and Settings. And in the Settings window, let me bring that up. At the bottom, click Reset to Defaults, and then click OK. Some of you might be following along step by step. Others might be coming to this video or the spot of the video having worked on the project some. This way we can all be on the same page as far as these settings. Go back to Project Settings, Player, Android, Other Settings, and then scroll down to Application Entry Point, where you'll see there's Activity and a Game Activity, and note that we have Game Activity checked as the default. If you want to understand better what this means, check out Android Application Entry Points in the documentation. It basically defines how Android runs the application. Activity is the older version, and Game Activity is the newer one, which provides more control. What we need to do is look and see what activity is in our Android manifest. Here's the error I get when my device is connected and I do build and run. I get this error that says no activity in the manifest with action main and category launcher. We can ensure that this error doesn't happen to you. So go to Plugins, Android, and double-click on the Android manifest. What we want to do is change this activity block here, which says Unity Player Activity, and instead we want to swap in Unity Player Game Activity, which corresponds to the setting we just looked at. Both the old Unity Player and newer Unity Player Game application entries are generated in a default Android manifest. So I'm just copying over this Unity Player Game block. Then I'll zoom in and you can copy it from me. At the top, let's also change the com.unity3d.player default placeholder with our unique app package name. The other thing you should do is go back up to Assets, External Dependency Manager, Android Resolver, and then click on Force Resolve. You should get a pop-up that says Android Dependencies Resolution Succeeded. The reason I suggest you do this is because there seems to be an issue where the application doesn't launch on device. And we can see in the Android Logcat, a package you can add to see logs of what's happening on your device, that the problem is due to some Facebook content provider class not being found. So for some reason, the auto resolution on build setting is not fixing this as of April 2025. So again, I'd like you to avoid this issue, and so we can just fix it from the start. Let's finally see this working on device. I'll do build and run, and when I do, I get a message that says, we've detected that your custom assets main template is using depreciated attributes. We can fix this if you like, so click yes, please fix this. Everything built okay like before, and the app actually opens, which is a good sign. I should say that I've deleted my player in the Unity dashboard and logged out of Facebook everywhere on my phone so we can actually see. And all right, there I am. You may just get a little log in the left corner that an account is already connected. Okay, that means we are done with Facebook login for Android. Now let's do Facebook sign in for iOS. We're back in the Facebook developer dashboard. For this, you'll of course need to be an Apple developer and have an app created to use for your tests during development. Let's go to App Store Connect and find the shared secret. That's on the left. Under General, click on App Information, then scroll all the way down to App-Specific Shared Secret. Click Manage and Generate, and this is what we want to paste into the Facebook platform setup. I'll also put in the bundle ID. And last, we need an iPhone Store ID, and this is a bit confusing because our app isn't on the store. What you can do while in development is temporarily use any store ID from another app. I'll use an ID from one of our Unity iOS app demos, And so you're welcome to use this number too if you like. From here, let's check out the documentation, and I'm going to read some of this. iOS 14 and later apps need to obtain permission to track the user's device across applications. Without explicit consent, the Facebook SDK will default to the Facebook limited login flow, and there's a slightly different token that needs to be handled correctly, but it can still be used by Unity authentication to associate a player. From a user or player perspective, there's no difference, but we need to know if the token retrieved is through the limited login or not. And we see here that there's an optional iOS support package for requesting consent and querying the consent status. So let's go and get that. Copy this, and then in the package manager, click on the plus and install package from a Git URL, then paste and install. At this point, I've switched the build to iOS. Let's open up the login manager. The code is from the documentation with a couple small changes. I've wrapped things with iOS platform directives for one. So we start with using the iOS support package, and then we prompt for the player's consent. And then down in the start Facebook sign-in method, which is triggered by the button click, we call sign-in with ATT Handling. And then in sign-in with ATT Handling, in the Facebook login callback, we mark the Lambda expression as async since our sign-in and link methods are task return types. Async enables us to use the await operator within the callback, so we're properly waiting for authentication to complete before continuing execution. And since we're handling sign-in and linking, it helps improve the readability of the method by handling the token retrieval snippet from the documentation in a separate getFacebook token for iOS method. Now that we're ready to run the app on iOS, we should make sure the Facebook SDK or frameworks will be available in the Xcode project. Go up to Assets, and then to External Dependency Manager, iOS Resolver, and then click Install CocoaPods. If for some reason the frameworks weren't added to the build process on Xcode, you'll see errors like these here. You can ensure the frameworks are part of the build by adding the Facebook SDKs to the build phases embed frameworks on your current target. I'm adding each required framework to ensure that they're properly embedded in the app, so that means the FBAEM kit, which is for events, the Core Kit Basics, Gaming Services Kit, and then the Login Kit and the Share Kit. And now the app should build, and you should be able to test. All right, that's it for this one. Hopefully we saved you some time here. See you in the next video.